Now, one of the most common videos you'll find in our space is what's in my camera bag, where we dissect all the gear that we keep in our backpacks on a regular basis. But nobody really asks what goes in my camera car. Today's video, I'm going to talk about all the things that I keep in my car in terms of my freelance life or my retainer clients. Now, I will say once again, I bought myself a brand new Bronco Sport, mostly because I was peer pressured into it. But I want to go into some of the staples that I keep in my trunk, how I set up my car, and make sure that I have enough room to keep everything that I need for freelance production or small business commercials. But, well, we'll get there. Now, some of you guys might ask, out of all the cars that you can get, why get a Ford Bronco, particularly a sport? Well, for one, I was kind of peer pressured into it. For two, I actually got an insane deal on the used market. But one thing that I value a lot is to have a car that has enough space for a lot of the things I need on a regular basis in terms of client projects when I'm working on small commercials or documentaries. I don't necessarily need to have a gigantic pickup truck, because if I need more equipment that fits in this car, typically I'm going to have someone else that's hired out in order to bring some of that grip and electric with them. I don't necessarily have enough money to get a giant production van and put a bunch of stuff in it to leave it all the time. And generally speaking, when I'm working with small crews, it doesn't necessarily require that much stuff. I also wanted to get a car that kind of looked pretty, so there's that as well. But for the most part, I needed a car that was able to fit everything that I needed between my lights, my C-stands, my camera packages, my lens kit, and some of the other peripherals that I would use, and anything else I probably have somebody else on set with me that I've paid extra money to bring some of that extra stuff with them. Also, because everybody names their cars, I decided to name mine Ironhide because I like Transformers a lot. But the first thing I'm going to load into my car is going to be my lights. Now, starting off with my lights, two lights that I always carry with me are going to be my FC500 and my FC300 by Nanlite. Now, for the most part, I'm in indoor environments, so there are going to be outlets inside of the location. And because I don't necessarily use a light to be my sun if I'm shooting by myself or if I'm shooting with a very small team, 500 watts is just enough for me to have enough power when I'm working indoors. Now, things might change, especially if we're going to be working in a place with a lot of windows and we need a lot of light, but generally speaking, for like 85% of the things that I do, 500 as my bright light and then 300 as a light that I'm going to supplement my lighting with is a 1-2 punch in order for me to get good enough lighting for the majority of situations. I'm going to put on a lav mic. This makes more sense. Next is going to be my DZO lenses. Now, I tend to keep about 2 Vespa Primes, a Cata Zoom, and as well as another Vespa Prime or another zoom lens on my camera body itself. Now, DZO did send me this nice Pelican case where I can carry things and it's nice and easy to do, and it's pretty sturdy, so I can leave it pretty much at the same height as my lights are. And what's going to happen as we go through this camera pack is everything's going to be on the base, and I'm going to put some of my other things on the top to make sure that everything fits nice and compact and it's not too messy, nor does it jostle around while I'm driving. I've done a lot of work with these DZO Vespa Primes and just DZO lenses in general, which are in tons of videos on this channel. But I do keep this guy in the Pelican case right up where my lights are in order for me to make sure that I have all the lenses I need most of the time. Now, typically I only really use 4 lenses in a shoot. Some people have 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 lenses, but I find that in terms of the coverage that I need, especially for solo filmmaking or with a small crew, 4 lenses is kind of a party. And as long as I have my coverage from some of my wider angles to something more telephoto, I'm actually pretty okay most of the time. And again, if I need another lens or something that's a little bit longer, a little bit tighter, I can always just come to a rental shop, which we'll kind of get to a bit later. Now, speaking of camera package, there's a couple of accessory packs that I keep with me that it goes with me every single shoot. Now, I did mention before that I'm using cinema lenses. So one thing I like to bring with me is my Focus Pro combo. Now, this is going to have the handle, the fizz motors, and as well as the hand wheel, just in case I need to get some focus outside of that 20-meter radius that the Focus Pro has. You guys have heard of this one before. It enables cinema lenses to have autofocus, so I could still keep on my DZO Vespa Primes or my Cata Zoom, while at the same time giving it autofocus, which works in the majority of situations. This also is a really nice and comfortable case. It's super easy to fit in anywhere inside of your car. This is something that I like to put in last, mostly because it's a smaller item and I don't want a bunch of heavy stuff to end up crushing this guy, even though the case is made pretty sturdy. However, this stays with me every single time, and I like to make sure that I keep this charged in stock just in case I need it. Next thing, and most people forget about this, is it's going to be a teleprompter. Now, I use a Desview T3. Now, it's a pretty manual analog teleprompter. It's not electronic at all, but it does use a filter thread in the front of your lens in order to put the teleprompter on, and it uses your iPad as kind of the thing that reads out the words. Now, if you're someone that shoots a lot of corporate stuff, I just came off of a corporate interview just last week. One of the things that ended up happening was that the talent didn't necessarily remember exactly what they're supposed to say, so I got everything on my iPad, put it on the teleprompter app, and it's super easy to use. In fact, it actually does come in a small little package package that I got this case from Amazon, and this store is kind of like the Focus Pro in terms of being easy to store, easy to use, but incredibly helpful whenever you need it. Because if you are in a shoot where you do need a teleprompter and you don't have one, it's a pain. Just believe me, it's not a super fun time, and generally speaking, it makes a shoot a lot longer, which costs a lot more money, which might be a good thing, but when you don't get things done, you might not get called back again. Now, I'm gonna be real with you on this one. I don't actually like that tripod. Now, I do have a Manfrotto 502 with the head that's on it and the video legs. I got it about 2.5 years ago, and it was great when I got it, but over time, it started to fall apart on me a little bit. Now, it's a tripod that I use for my camera setups because it's the only one that fits the payload, but over time, it started to fall apart on me a little bit, and I don't have Sackler money to go and buy a $4,000 tripod. So it's something that I have to make do with, but I am in the market for a new tripod. However, I do pack that guy every single shoot that I have, mostly because my rigs are a little bit heavier, and that's the only thing that can carry it, albeit it does it mediocrely. Also, don't forget sandbags. You're probably gonna pack C-stands in your car, especially if you wanna have lights or different types of diffusion, but sandbags are gonna be important to make sure you don't knock anything over, especially if you are shooting outside, kind of like now where it is a little bit windy. These aren't the sexiest things that are gonna go in my car, but I also use them as anchors to make sure if anything slides between the back seats and the trunk, it kind of stays put because I put sandbags at the back. Now, if you are wondering how many sandbags you should pack, I like to keep about 1.5 for every one C-stand that I have. So later on in this build, you're gonna see about 5 or 6 C-stands. So I would keep anywhere between 7 and 9 sandbags just to make things are weighed down. Now we're gonna go into my accessory bag. Now I'm not gonna go through every single item that's in here because that video would be way longer, but this is my Sackler Doctor bag. You've seen this on the channel before. I usually would keep a fully rigged cinema camera in here, but this is where I keep all my accessories. My Nisi C5 matte box with my ND filters are going to be in here. I keep spare V-mount batteries, my cage, and all my audio equipment that's in here as well. I also keep my transmitters that are on here, so my DJI SDR transmission system is in here as well. A lot of things that are gonna go on my camera package. Even the motors for my Focus Pro are gonna be in here. All of the stuff that's going to go in terms of the rigging for my camera, I keep in this bag. Sometimes I dress my cameras up, sometimes I dress them down, but I like to keep all of my accessories in here just in case I need to set something up, or if something goes wrong, I keep things like spare monitors just in case. This is also one of the heaviest bags that I'll put in my car. With any sort of light, you're going to need some form of diffusion. Now, I was on a big kick of anything but a softbox, but generally for client work, I don't do a lot of things that take a lot more time than it needs to. Now, I'm going to keep 2 different size softboxes in the back of my car. One's going to be the Nanlite 50 Octo box, which is a gigantic softbox that you can use for your light, which covers a very wide area, and it works really well with that 500 FC. I'm also going to keep a smaller one just in case, for obvious reasons, if I'm in a space where I can't use the 150. Generally speaking, the bigger the diffusion, the softer the source, and when I'm doing things like corporate projects, the softer light is going to be a little bit more favorable. But if I don't have the space, I'll use a smaller softbox. I also like to keep 5-in-1 reflectors and 5-in-1 diffusion, bounce, and negative fill as well. Now, I won't keep a 4x in here just because I feel like sometimes it's a bit too big and bulky, but I will keep a 2x3 instead, which not only has a gold and silver bounce, but you could also use it as negative fill as well. This is great to put on your C-stand, especially when you want to shape the light, but you want to keep some portability as well. And for fitting in a car of this size, it makes a lot of sense. All right, so the main event is going to be having C-stands in your car. Now, what's nice about the Bronco Sport is there's this little groove inside of the trunk, so you can fit C-stands horizontally. This is actually super nice because when I had them vertically before, when I didn't figure that out, sometimes if I had to slam on the brakes or something shifted in the car, I was afraid of actually puncturing holes in my backseat or somewhere else inside of the car. But in my experience, I'm able to hold up to 6 C-stands in the back of the car, which is just enough for what I need in terms of my lights, some of the grip, especially if I'm shooting solo or with a very small team. Baby cart, oh, we love our baby cart. I just gotta put this stuff, maybe zip it up, but we're almost at the deep end. Also, if you've been watching this video this far into it, I mean, it's not the sexiest video in the world. It's mostly about how I pack the back of my car. Maybe subscribe, or at the very least, thank you. Now that we're in the deep end of this video, I'm gonna talk about some of the more obvious things that you might have, and that's gonna be, well, my camera bag. Now, I am gonna have a camera fully rigged out, and that's usually gonna sit in a special place in my heart and a special place in my car. But one thing I would suggest if you do have a B cam is to keep your B cam package in a backpack. It's gonna be a little bit easier when you're transporting from place to place because you might have a lot of things like cases, which is gonna take up both of your hands. Keeping something like a backpack is a little bit easier to keep some of those things just in case something goes wrong and you have to use a backup camera. Also, it works really well if you are doing a 2-camera setup. And if you guys are curious about what goes in my camera backpack, because who hasn't made that video before, leave an emoji of your favorite animal. I'm just curious now. And second, lastly, we're gonna talk about our little baby cart. Now, this is not necessarily a production cart, it's just something I got on Amazon. It's pretty small, it fits into the car. And this not only keeps things a little bit easy to transport, but this makes it easier to store things like my lenses, my Focus Pro combo, or to charge batteries if I have a portable battery station, which is kind of a hint to the end of this video. It's also super easy because it actually folds up pretty easily just like this and fits in the back of a car. Now, I put in everything else to make things a little bit easier, but I could use this to weigh down some of those diffusion sheets, or I can just put it on top of my lights and it still has enough clearance where if I have to reverse, I can still see. Although the Bronco Sport has a rear view camera, but I also like to turn around and see things for myself because bad things happen to good people sometimes. And last but not least, you want to make sure that you have power, just in case things go wrong. Now, this isn't necessarily a production tip. This is just generally speaking. If I'm driving my car, maybe my car dies and I'm stranded somewhere and I need to use my phone and I don't have enough juice in my phone, keeping something like this Anchor C100 helps out a lot. This is also great when you want to use it as a portable battery charger for some of your camera batteries while you're on set. And you could put this on that little baby cart we were talking about before in order to make a nice and compact battery station without having too many wires all over the place. Now, I did cover this in a battery video, which you can check right somewhere over there. But the Cole's notes on this, guys, that it has multiple USB-C ports that are in it, and it has a fast charging. So anything that you have that's USB-C, or even if you have solar power, which I don't know how many of you guys do, and a couple of USB-A ports as well, you're going to be able to draw power from this guy, and it has an app as well, so you can actually check how much the draw is, and you could relocate and allocate whatever you want to do. But essentially what I'm trying to say here is that this guy is my state of emergency piece of kit. And also, it fits easy in the car, because if you haven't noticed, we put the seats down in the beginning of this video. So you could actually put stuff in the bottom of the seat just in case you don't have things that'll fit on the bed of your truck or on the back of the seats. If it fits in there like this power pack over here, maybe you have another generator or you have extra sandbags, you can't just throw them at the bottom of the seat and you'll be perfectly fine.
Now, I can't forget where I'm going to keep my passenger princess. Now, typically whenever I'm working with a full car, I'll leave my fully rigged camera in the passenger seat, which fits nicely in a seatbelt. This is essentially the most delicate part of your camera car build, mostly because, well, no shoot's going to go on without having a camera with you. To save a lot of space in my bags, I'll make sure that I pretty much have it kitted out about 90 to 95%, and then I'll just leave it in the front seat. And that way it's easy for transport, and as well as I don't waste too much time on set rigging up the camera because it's already done.
Now, as we get to the end of this video, I also fully acknowledge that honestly nobody asked for this video, but I wanted to show you guys how I pack my car for production shoots, mostly because I have quite a few of them over the next couple of days. Now, there's obviously going to be some safety things that you want to keep in mind, especially when you're packing a car with expensive camera gear. For one, make sure that your insurance is updated, mostly because if something unfortunately does happen, your insurance can cover it. For two, you want to make sure that you also use things like Apple AirTags that you could put in cases as well. I do want to make a separate video for them, as I got to buy like 9 Apple AirTags in order to show you guys how to put them in different places. However, having some sort of tracking that's going to be in your bags is a great way just in case to buy you a little bit more time in order for you to find your stuff or wherever it was taken if it was, which you can find from my buddy Benj's video, which I'll leave also in the description down below. And number 3 is to make sure that you lock your car. Now, that sounds like a really dumb thing to say, but sometimes when you're running and gunning, you're rushing, you're making sure that you're packing up the car, making sure you're unloading, sometimes some of the simple things get forgotten. So making sure that you just do some of those basics, it's actually a really great way to make sure that you ensure that none of your stuff gets stolen out of your car. Now, one thing that I did mention is if you did need any other extra equipment, maybe you don't have kit at home, you might just want to stop at a rental shop. I've been going to Viva for pretty much 2.5 years, and generally speaking for me, I don't necessarily like to keep that much kit at home. In fact, some of my overflow gets rented out over here. If you guys do want to check them out in the Toronto area, I rent my stuff from them all the time, including a lot of the things that you saw in this video. I'll actually put a little asterisk by everything that I rent at Viva on a regular basis, or things that I leave here. And that way, if you do ever swing by here, you're able to get some stuff that you need for your next shoot without you having to bear the burden of having to buy it outright. That being said, I hope you guys enjoyed the video. Hope it was interesting, but what do you guys keep in your camera car? I'll see you guys in the next one. Peace.